everybody. Welcome to day 7 of the 25 Days of Flows, the Power Automate Advent Calendar. And today we're going to do our first scheduled flow. We've done a couple of instant as well as automated. So our first 3 days we did automated, and then we did a couple of instant, which were the buttons, the 5th and the 6th. And then today we're going to do our first scheduled flow. And this just means that you're going to set up a frequency for the flow. So I'm going to click on day 7 to show you the flow for today, which is the weekly CSV report from a SharePoint list view. And notice that this is a CSV report, which means that I'll be able to send this report attached to an email so that they could just double click on it, open it in Excel, and manipulate it any way they want, add charts, whatever they want to do. Okay, so sometimes it's helpful to give people a CSV file that they can play with. You can also, and I'll show you both ways, we can double this one up to be also the option to send a weekly HTML report from a SharePoint list view. And notice that I'm sending from a SharePoint list view. So let's do our little connector story first. Today we're going to be using 2 connectors, and they're both standard. The SharePoint connector and the Office 365 Outlook connector. SharePoint will give you the option to connect to on-premises data through a gateway or to connect to SharePoint Online. Office 365 Outlook is often confused with Outlook.com. So be careful that you select the right one. For the most part, what I recommend to you is whenever you're using Office 365 connectors and you're in your Office 365 tenant, it's best that you keep your first-party connections all basically in that tenant. It does 2 things. One, it makes authentication really easy, less work for you to maintain. And 2, it prevents data from leaking out of your company into an environment that maybe wouldn't be as secure. Okay, Office 365 Outlook within your tenant, Outlook.com, maybe a personal account, maybe we don't want data going there. Okay, so keep in mind, stay within the Office 365 realm when that's where you normally work. And you're going to be safe that way. Of course, you don't have to do that. That depends on the DLP policies of your tenant and your decision. So I'm just giving you a recommendation. It all works out best when you stay within the same SaaS service. Okay, so let's go do this. We're going to start in Flow, and as usual, I always tell you, start at the template page, type CSV if that's what you want to do, and check out all the templates that are related to a comma separated values file. Lots of them, okay? So sometimes you don't need to start from scratch. Start checking the template page first. Okay, so now I'm not going to use the template page today. We're going to do this by hand because there's a couple things I want to point out to you, and I'm hoping to be able to do them quickly. We've already done automated, we've already done instant, and this is our first scheduled. And now here you get this helper dialog. And let's call this weekly contractors report. And the reason I'm saying that is because I've chosen a contractors list on SharePoint that changes a lot. And I'll just let you look at it real quick. The contractors list has all of our contractors' contract information, their bid value, their current value after change orders were submitted, whether or not the contract has been signed, and the estimated end date of the contract. Every contract that we acquire, we are going to put in this list. So this list will be dynamically changing during every week. So this is a good idea for me to share with my engineers or my resident engineers what's happening in here. Okay, so I'm going to go back to my flow now that I understand why I named it that. And I'm going to pick a frequency. Okay, notice you have 1 minute, which unfortunately is the default. Be careful, because sometimes you can accept that default and then you get these viral flows. So be careful. Let's choose week. Now notice that even though I chose week, instantly the days of the week are all filled in. So pay attention to this sentence down here. It says this flow will run on Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, every week. That's not quite what I expected the first time I saw this, because I picked once a week. But it's really easy to see what's happening. So just unselect the days you don't want. And now it says it runs on Monday every week. So it's a slightly different logic than Outlook, but still extremely easy to do. When it comes to the start time, I usually pick midnight. I tend to want to pick off-peak hours so notice that even though I have Monday, I still have to choose Monday's starting date to start it on Monday. Otherwise, it defaults to the day you create the flow. So there aren't a lot of automatic connections here. So pay attention to each selection that you're making. And I tend to suggest doing any major queries, off peak. Some companies don't have off peak though. If you're international, you don't really have an off peak. Now I'm going to hit create, and that puts the reoccurrence there and completely populates it. And this is the beauty of that assistant dialog. It's to guide you through what's needed for this trigger. And you just, get that all set up in one swoop, and it's awesome. Here's the funny thing though. You're going to laugh at me. We're not going to use this trigger yet. And this is a practice that I have. Basically, when I'm building weekly reports, I don't want that trigger up there. I want a button up there. And then after I get my report looking good, which might take a couple of tries, then I put the reoccurrence up there. So in this video, you'll learn how to do the reoccurrence from scratch because I'm about to delete it. And then I'm going to put a manual button there from the built-in connectors. And this way I can easily test my report. Okay, now we're going to get items in SharePoint. And there we go. I'm going to pick my site. And I can see it up here in my tabs. And I'm going to pick my list. And now we're going to talk about the view. Notice that when I open the advanced options here, you get to filter, you get to sort, and you get to top count, and you get to pick your view, right? And notice that what the text says in front of this, it says limit columns by view. And the primary reason for this is many people will have these really wide lists, right? We got 200 columns across, or we got 27 lookup columns, which don't even display on SharePoint. But by picking a view that reduces the number of columns in width and reduces the lookups to under 12, then you've got something that actually works, won't error out, won't time out, all that stuff doesn't happen to you. So the views help restrict you from having any issues with throttling or performance related to the number of complex columns or the number of columns in total. So I have already created a view on SharePoint called CSV. Here it is right here. My default view is still all items. Notice it has more columns. But when this report runs, I don't need to go to SharePoint and change it to CSV. I did that for your benefit. It just knows to go look at the CSV. This could be a personal view. In that case, only I can do that action that gets the data. But then we're creating a CSV file from it, and so they won't need access to the view. All right, so I'm going to go back to Flow and pick CSV. Now this output will actually still give me those system columns. And so I'm just going to test this real quick. Sorry, the test button is a little bit outside of your view, but you guys know where the test button is. Got it. I think, wait, let's try that again. Okay, so I've actually selected my columns by view. Now I'm going to add another step to create the CSV file. And all I have to do is pick Create CSV Table and pop the Get Items in there. And then I'm actually going to set up a custom mapping. I can choose my own headers. Like I can say contractor name, even though this is title. And I can say estimated end date. Now you will notice you can't put spaces between these words. It's a known issue. I can't speak to whether it will be fixed, but it is most definitely a known issue. And then after that, I'm going to put current baseline, which is the amount of the contract today versus the bid value, which is what the contractor's original contract value was. So I've mapped that out. And so if we do a little test, now I'm hoping this test, I'm having a little bit of problem with my test. So we won't test it tonight. I think it's something to do with my tenant. So I'm going to just keep going. And then what I'm going to do is add another action to show you HTML. Usually you do one or the other, not both, but I wanted you to see both. All right. So notice when I create the HTML table, I only get one value here, but I still want to do the same mapping I did above. And I can actually copy and paste between these actions. So I can come in here, Control C, Control V, go over here. I can actually copy that too. I just don't like to because I don't like the way it feels. It's just a silliness on my part. But you can copy tags and text between actions. All right, so estimated end date. I suggest that you use a double click versus Control A and then Control C. And then we're going to take the baseline from here. So I'm just copying what I did because guess what? It works the same exact way. Nothing to talk about. And then bid value is the original contract value. And bam. All right. Now, for the email, I'm going to use the Outlook, right? And notice when I type Outlook, I get Office 365 Outlook and Outlook.com, Outlook Customer Manager, and Outlook Tests. So again, if you're working in Office 365, my recommendation would be to stick in Office 365 to maintain your data within your tenant, but you most definitely could connect to your personal Outlook.com as well if your DLP policy allows that. And I'm going to pick send an email. There's only one now, and it's not sorted alphabetically. Send an email. I believe it's sorted by frequency of use, but it's not alphabetic. All right, so then I'm going to, who am I going to send this to? Normally this would go to an Office 365 group because I have a group of people that I want to send this to. And so I might use their alias or the group. So you've seen me do this before, so I'm going to do it really fast. I'm just going to do Office 365 groups and pick that up and then list group members. And then I'm going to, right after that, I'm going to do a little quick iteration, apply to each. And put those group members in there. Right before all of this, I'm going to initiate a variable. So I think when I walked through this slowly, it had to be, it feels like it was day 2, but it definitely was during this situation that we have here. So var emails, and then I make it a string because what I'm going to do is append to that string. So I'm going to look for append to string variable. Make sure you match your types, string to string, array to array. And then I'm going to put the mail in there. and a semicolon. What this will do is loop through all the members in the group that I suggested, that I selected, which I didn't do yet. I'm going to put this in my Power Platform demos, just because I don't think I can spam anybody and there's nobody in there. But it will loop through all those group members and create a variable with all of the email addresses. So this is a way I can just target this message to the whole group. Now, if you can put it in the 2-line, that means it's kind of it's a group that you have email enabled. It should work, but I just find it easier to use my variable so that I know exactly what's going to happen. And then in the subject, I'm going to put weekly contractors report. And in the body, I'm going to put the HTML. So notice my dynamic tags here. I have both an output for the HTML and an output for the CSV. I'm going to put the output for the HTML in the body. And what's best to do is first click your div tag HTML view and put it right between those P's so that you get that HTML format. And then we're going to open up the advanced and click on the attachment content and put our CSV output in there. So this is the CSV file, that is the HTML. And then we just want to give this a name, so I'm just going to call it contractors.csv. And this should work without an issue. Let's give it a try. So, you know what I just realized? That I want to show you this email. And wondering, let's put myself in there just for now, just for my test. Hopefully, usually what it does is it reads it. And so because I can't get my IntelliSense to pop up right this minute, let's try now. Okay, got it. So notice this little thing, it navigates from IntelliSense to dynamic tags. So it toggles, I'm sorry, from IntelliSense to dynamic tags. All right, then I'm going to save and test. And basically this video is over. I'm only going to give you one more really big tip. I could share a secret with you too. I have a secret to share that would apply here. So I'm going to go to the email. Let's see what's happening here. Did we fail? Okay, I think the test didn't run. So I'm going to do save. And then I'm going to go to my flows, leave this page, and run it. All right, so our flow ran. Please fix connections. All right, let's fix this connection. And notice that fixing connections, you're just clicking on the red text and it fixes itself. You know, it may require you to re-log in if the password is expired or something, but it should just work. And there's our report. Notice it has the attachment, which is a CSV file that's going to open in Excel, and they can pivot it and have fun making it look exciting. Or this is the HTML format. And of course, you can set your own div tags up for these things, but you might have to iterate to add them within the actual fields. What you'll notice is that my numbers don't look like currency. So I'm going to share a secret with you, but you can't tell anybody I shared it with you, okay? So quick secret is that you can actually add a number format. This is coming out very soon, but I'm going to cheat and show you. I'm just going to type format number with the capital N. And inside that format number, well, first let me get I'm going to do peak code here to get the internal story or the code version of the current baseline. Then I'm going to click in there, type expression format number with a capital N. Inside there, I'm going to paste what I saw in peak code. When this is out for your enjoyment, you will not have to do what I just did. Oh, I lost the little end of my... And so now I'm going to run this again. Oh, I'm going to save it. Sorry, I'm going to save it. And then we're going to run it from the flow itself. We may have a little bit of impact in this tenant when it comes to test. So we can just run it. And let's see. It might just be stop trying to do stuff you're not supposed to be talking about. Totally, the error message totally helped me. What it says to me is you only passed one parameter and you need to pass 2 parameters because we have to pass the format of the number. Duh. Okay, so I'm going to do comma, open quote, $, hash mark, hash dot 00. Doesn't that look just like Excel? So I've decided what the format is of my number. I'm going to not use double quotes. This is the only variance with, you have to remember that Power Apps uses double quotes and Flow uses single quotes. I'm going to say okay. And now I'm going to save. And now I'm going to run the flow again. And it won't fail. So when this comes out, it'll be very clear to you what the parameters are because we have a special action coming out for you. So you just got a sneak peek. Now you can't tell anybody I told ya, okay? It's a sneak peek. Let me know what you think about it, okay? Let's go to my mail. Notice we've got a number formatted right here as currency, which used to be a little bit of a pain point when you were trying to do that in Flow. Now you can do that. You will get this format very soon. Just keep it a secret between us. All right, that's the end of this video. Just one last thing I wanted to show you. A big tip is, and remember I always tell you, when you can filter, filter. So just a tip on how to filter. Let's say I only wanted contracts above 200,000. Then I'm going to use current baseline greater than 200,000. And so I'm going to go into this filter query and type current baseline, which I think it said current, right? Did it say current or contract? Yeah, current baseline greater than 200,000. And that's a number, so I don't need to put any quotes around it, but I need to check that my number of zeros is right. I don't want to put any punctuation in there either, okay? Now, one point, this is a display name and an internal name. I actually know that, but you need to check that, okay? Because OData queries do not care about display names. They care about internal names. So just open the field column in SharePoint and look up at the URL. It will end with field equals. And whatever it says after that equal sign, that is the internal name that you can use in your OData query. All right, let's save this and run this and see what difference we get. I asked for contracts over 200K. Let's run this. You could actually send a report. Maybe you are only responsible for contractor 1. Well, filter it where title is EQ contractor 1. In that case, because that's text, you need to put contractor 1 in single quotes. And now you see we only get 2 values because the third one is not over 200K. I hope this is helpful for you so that you can plan reporting. Now, when you download this flow, remember that this has my SharePoint list parameters in it. So you'll have to replace it to have your SharePoint site and your SharePoint list, your SharePoint filter query, right? And then this will work. The only thing I didn't do is put the reoccurrence back. And that's kind of the last thing I would do after I've got it looking right. One thing I've seen people do is use the reoccurrence as a default and leave it at 1 minute by accident. and then you go viral really fast. So just be careful that you don't leave the 1 minute default there after you've finished. Make sure you remember to change this to back to week. And then you can pick what days you want and what hours you want. And so look, it just gives you a drop down. It's really easy. And then you read this purple box when you're doing this manually, and it will tell you this runs at 8 o'clock on Monday every week. Okay. I could, of course, kept my little secret that I had one at midnight. That's going to be 0. All right. And what's interesting is you can pick more than one time. So unselect anything you don't want. And again, if you get confused, just read the purple box. All right. Which will tell you what's going to happen. Okay. And then save it. So I'm going to give you this flow just like this. It has the frequency set up. It has the groups that you can iterate through. At this point, now that my reoccurrence is right, I'll remove me, who was a tester. I'll hit my little double arrows and use the var emails to send this out. So that'll send it out to the entire Office 365 group. Isn't that awesome? I really like this. I remember the days when I would stay at work late Friday night doing reports. And now Flow does them for me, and I do videos instead. You have an awesome weekend and a happy holiday. I look forward to seeing you tomorrow at day 8 of the 25 Days of Flows, the Power Automate Advent Calendar. Have a great weekend.